Rutro? I left something on here that reflects reality, so it looks like it was censored. But before we get to that, let's do this. Oh, here, I got another idea. I'll pinch this in the event that he blocks me as well. Oh, look, you can't pinch this one, so here we fucking go.
Americans are learning a lot about China from this mass exodus to Redbook. So apparently, Americans are asking a lot of these people questions like, hey, what do you think of this? Or what's something that Americans believe about China or have heard about China that isn't true? And they'll get these answers like, for example, do you really work for $1 a day? And they'll go, no. In small cities, it's $5. In big cities, it's about $100. But the cost of living is way different, and things are cheaper, and businesses pay for transportation, and lunches are free and stuff. It's a totally different system. One of the things that I think is really interesting that we have learned lately is what the Chinese have to say about life in America. And what they have to say is that Americans believe they're free, when in fact they are not. They're ruled by an oligarchy. And that basically all of America is just one giant corporation. This fascinated me.
Here's some stuff that I've been trying to get people to fucking consider most of my fucking life, long before I pulled my head out of my ass. Take a screenshot, look it up, use your brain. That's the point. Some of these are going to be redundant, but take a fucking screenshot. Use your brain. That's the point. Do you see what we're focused on? The bottom right? In other words, this guy just talked to some people in fucking China and he thought this was eye-opening. Meanwhile, if you fucking use the tools at your disposal instead of for entertainment, you might be able to figure something out. And it might lead somewhere. And it might fly in the face of what most fucking superficial people repeat.
I've always wondered what Chinese media or even maybe propaganda had to say about Americans. Since we hear such negative things about the Chinese and we're adversarial, I always assumed there must be some sort of negative spin that the Chinese hear about us. And if you think about life in America, it's a fair criticism. If I was an outsider looking in and I knew about American geopolitics and politics in general and how our economic system worked, I might say, oh yeah, that's an oligarchy. Yeah, there's a ruling rich class and everybody else. And it's one giant corporation. It's just this giant commercial enterprise. I would absolutely probably think that. Super fascinating. We're learning a lot from this, and I think we're getting some really great intermingling and good relations that potentially in the future could change our relationship with China. It's really good because maybe over time, people in America will stop supporting any kind of sentiment that is anti-Chinese, and maybe the same will be true in China. And who knows, that it might lead to a kind of necessity for the two nations' governments to stop demonizing each other. Now, is the world perfect? Will it work out that way? I don't know, but it might. And the amount of radically interesting things that are happening because of this app is blowing my mind. Because not only this stuff is going on, but also people are successfully tanking Meta stock now. That is no small feat. And people talk on this app a lot about starting a revolution and all this stuff. And when we were talking about Mario's brother, everybody said there might be a revolution. It didn't really happen. And I kind of went like, oh, okay, people just kind of talk. But this, people are actually getting that done. Like they are actually plummeting Facebook and Instagram. So this is horribly fascinating to me. But let me ask you guys this. Do you think that this mass protest, this push to Redbook is going to end up actually saving TikTok in the long run? Anyways, that's all I got to say, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. My name is Matt. I make art, news, and faith content. If you like this video, please give me a follow. Thanks a lot.
Ironically, I'm allegedly using a Chinese app right now, which is censoring me. Are you picking up how ironic this is? Americans are talking to Chinese folks and they're telling them the truth, but this app that is supposedly Chinese is doing what with me?
True, and they'll get
If it fucking works, I've clicked on it 3 times. Looks like a comment I posted was fucking censored. What's it said? What's it say? Are all of you too slow to look up the information available to you? Why would you have to ask someone in China? Is that deeply offensive, or does that make absolute fucking sense? Why am I being challenged? Keep in mind, if freedom of speech existed, this wouldn't. Freedom of speech has nothing to do with community standards, and community standards has everything to do with patently fascist censorship. And yet, good people aren't doing the right thing, so that's why this is what it is. And this is fucking ironic. If I wasted my time trying to help you guys and I made a new one of these, every single social media platform you could think of would be regurgitated. Oh, pardon me. That's actually what people are doing currently. In other words, you picking up what I'm putting down? Probably not. Because people aren't very smart these days, and it fucking should terrify you, but most people aren't invested, which means they're not fucking involved. The results used to be worth a damn. These are pretty subpar compared to the old days. Some people haven't figured out the golden age of the internet, the DARPA internet, is long since over. It's all a downward trajectory right now. This is the superficial Google search I punched in. And all I said was title 283002, and I said corporation to try to help Google because Google's functionally fucking retarded. And you can take the time to run through this. Most of you probably won't. It's just going to tell you the same thing I fucking told you a minute ago. But, oh, and look, I just hit the bottom of this wall. The internet is over. That's all that was ever put on the internet, just so you know. That's it. Having to do with this. I'm going to digress because that's fucking insulting. And it would insult somebody's intelligence if they were thinking for themselves. I realize this isn't the Chinese flag, but it's the same idea. It's the same fucking idea. Just the same, America is a fucking corporation, and so is Russia, and so is China, and the list goes on, and most people haven't realized this much. This is relevant because most people shop around the wartime flag of the District of Columbia, the one on the bottom, but you've probably never seen the one on the top. And most Google searches will probably tell you that this is bullshit now, thanks to things like the Smith-Mundt Act or the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, thanks to the Obama administration. It will also lie about that as well, which is ironic if you consider what I'm telling you. Another reason people are being familiarized with Chinese society and all this other garbage is in place to pave the way for social credit slavery. These things are being normalized. And most people aren't going to pick up on that either. World War III, communist bullshit, and social credit slavery. So in this video, this guy is going to mention how America is an oligarchy because the Chinese people told me this. Technically, it's a plutocracy if you look up the definition. This guy's a stupid fuck. But best of all, that has to do with a hierarchy of bullshit, of power, right? And technically, there's always a hierarchy of bullshit and power. But if you and I are surrounded by more good people than bad people, people who are truly adults, willing to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, they can back up what they believe based on a moral standpoint with action, well, things would be good, wouldn't they? More often than not, wouldn't they? So in terms of a power dynamic, it would benefit the people in stark contrast to what we experience and what China technically experiences. You might have heard of technocracies and other crap like that, a surveillance state. I mean, that's what China is. That's what you see in the UK. That's what America is being ramped up to become. But if I'm not mistaken, it's going to come after a really fucked up collapse and a bunch of other garbage, which is part of what's also being orchestrated right now. People are being spoon-fed a narrative, just like death to capitalism. Capitalism is done. America's on its way out. America's a third world country, blah, 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 blah. And these things are being echoed right now on TikTok, as well as Red Note. And it's a narrative. It's an official narrative. It's a mindset that's being spoon-fed to gullible people who are incapable and or unwilling to fucking think for themselves. What I'm saying is, everything this guy rattled off, by and large, is a fucking problem. And he's not being censored on the DARPA internet because he's a fucking fool. Some of you might remember when people over at MySpace were herded to Facebook. Do you remember that? So now's a great time to think about what's being labeled as TikTok refugees. If TikTok was fine and dandy, right, most of those kids probably wouldn't sign up for Red Note otherwise. But they sure as shit are now, which is creating a faction of people aligning themselves with quote-unquote China. China is one of many corporations, as is America. You can look this shit up. Most people probably won't. Just the same. What I want you to appreciate is our masters aren't terribly clever, but their methods are working. Our masters aren't terribly clever, but their methods are effective, is what I'm trying to spit out. I'm making spaghetti and I need to eat. That's my excuse as usual. Yeah. So what I'm driving at is, this is the same song and dance. Do you remember 9/11 leading to the Patriot Act? Do you remember the Patriot Act about to expire with the Obama administration? But the Obama administration not only extended it, they renewed it. Which means what? Fewer civil liberties. It's one example. Another example I can't talk about by name, but 2020 might ring a bell with you. And that enduring agenda is still alive and well. People didn't look into it. Point being, there are still people who believe in that don't know what the fuck a micron is. Or how many microns constitute a you-know-what. Or whether or not that might just slip right through the facial diaper. Because people don't look into things, they buy into things. They play follow the fucking leader in lockstep. Like a bunch of lemmings off a cliff. So here's another point, and this isn't going to come up because people aren't thinking for themselves. Otherwise, you would have heard this long before tonight. If you've ever thought about, Germany and some of those negative connotations with Germany, one of those things that was echoed long ago was get them young. I pity every single kid who has been born into this, realm. We're but part of a world, mind you, and I'm not talking about the flat earth or the globe theory. Both of those are our master's outlines. But I pity anybody who's been born into and raised with social media. It's the DARPA internet for a reason. Social media is free for a reason because it's social engineering platforms. And these are quite literally what are roping people in and indoctrinating entire generations into repeating the propaganda verbatim. Dogmatically repeating the nonsense. Because it's quite literally in place to get them young. And it's working. It's working. Most people out there, they lack any and all creative thinking skills. They can't sort shit out. They're slower than ever before. And more gullible than ever before as well. Usually I'll say good people tend to be gullible, but Jesus Christ. Things like literal humor has done away with sarcasm. I've interacted with one too many people and they can't spot fucking sarcasm. On the internet or in real life, mind you. Sometimes they'll give me a funny look in real life. And I'll still have to tell these younger kids, I'm mocking you. I'm openly mocking you right now. And you don't have a clue, right? And most of them don't. And I can tell them that to their face, and some of them still think, you're joking, right? Everything's entertainment, right? Positive vibes? They don't get it. It's terrifying. Either way. These are things that should come up because these are the same methods. People are being herded at the moment. They're doing exactly what our masters want them to do. And they're not questioning any of this or why it's taking place to begin with. I left this online the other night. What's taking place right now is paving the way for, an official narrative, which promotes World War III, for one. It also promotes all of the horseshit communist propaganda, for two. Red Note. You ever heard the expression better dead than red? Having to do with communism. All communism is fascism. Anything that ends with ism is fascism, including democracy, and most people haven't figured that much out. I rattle this shit off as canned responses often. Most people don't see the videos, let alone think about them when they do. And how many of you are too chicken shit to do the right fucking thing and challenge others in real life and on the internet? Most of you wouldn't do that. Even if you did know what you were talking about. Every single kid that has just reacted, and don't believe me. You can jump on TikTok and watch how many people are talking about, oh, well, I migrated, I'm doing this. I'm going to learn Mandarin. I don't frown on learning foreign languages and what have you, but this shit is fucking orchestrated, and most people can't, they can't tell that the shit stinks and it's in the same room as them. It's on their feet. It's on their shoe wear. Horrible way to put it. But people have no idea what's going on because they don't mean to. They're just playing follow the fucking leader. What the fuck do I know?